Hello, everyone. My name's Isaiah West. I am the Teen Services Specialist at the Prince George's County Memorial Library System. I'm so happy to welcome you to the Going Graphic panel. We're so excited to hear from some of the creators who are expanding the possibilities of graphic storytelling. With us today, we are going to have Meg Cabot, the author of Detective Baby Dance Team Drama, a HarperCollins children's books. Mike Dawson, The Hidden Dominion of Geordie James, Union Square Kids. Sina Grace, Game On, Random House Children's Books. Maia Kobabe, Opting Out Scholastic. And Sean Ryan, Xanar and Mr. Tuxedo, Mad Cave Studios. Thank you all for joining me and joining us as we talk about the amazing graphic novels that you're putting out into the world. My first question is actually, let's do a little bit of rapid fire intro for the books that I just mentioned. I want to ask you, who's your main character and what's a major challenge or problem that they're up against in your graphic novel? And let's start with Meg.
Thanks so much for having me. In my graphic novel, The Detective Baby, the main character is named Jen, and she's a babysitter, a teenage babysitter, and she ends up having to babysit for a detective baby. It's a baby who solves crimes, which is there's so many problems. I wouldn't even know where to begin. But the primary one is that Jenny does not want this job, but she's stuck with it. So she's solving crimes now with a baby.
So, Mike, what about yours?
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me. My graphic novel is called The Hidden Dominion of Geordie James. The main character is a sixth grader. His name is Geordie James, and he's struggling a lot in the world. He's having a lot of trouble with school, socially. He's having a lot of trouble academically, and he really isn't interested in being very present in the world. He wants to spend his time inside a video game called Dominion, which is a place where he just is much happier, able to control the world around him much more, but he's still basically by himself, and that's a problem he has is sort of his inability to sort of connect outside with other people and stuff.
Thank you. Let's pass it to Sina.
My book, in Game On, the character's name is Sasan, and his main challenge is keeping up with his friends. And he goes about keeping up with them by taking Farsi lessons with his mom in exchange for the latest video gaming console.
Oh, I loved it so much. Maya, what about you?
The main character of my recent book is Sachi, who is a middle schooler. And the main challenges that Sachi is facing is definitely like puberty, growing up, coming of age, the peers and friends around her suddenly being interested in like boy-girl stuff and dating, and my character being like, wait, can't we just all keep reading our favorite fantasy novels and like drawing and writing and living in our sort of more childhood fantasy world? So it's a very coming of age story.
Very excited to dive deeper into that with you. Sean, let's wrap it up.
Yeah, my main characters are Xanar and Mr. Tuxedo. Xanar is like a childlike robot, and Mr. Tuxedo is kind of an old, surly penguin. And they're fighting the main thing they're fighting against is sort of this corrupting influence of this kind of mad sorcerer who they're looking for. And then at the same time, kind of fighting against what that corrupting influence is of this mad sorcerer, which is kind of paranoia, loneliness, despair, and hopelessness, and kind of fighting back against that because Xander's a very positive character and sort of that fight between positivity and negativity.
I was very excited to see a penguin in a graphic novel. It is my favorite animal. So, we're going to sit on some questions. We're going to do it just kind of like one-on-one, but I want to encourage any of you that if something resonates that someone's speaking about, feel free to hop in. Let's keep it, conversational and fun. But my first question is for you, Meg. So Rosie, the baby, talks like this, like old school, like noir detective trapped in like this little body. And it just worked so well. How did you develop her voice in a way that felt funny and like over the top without being too grown up?
Oh, well, thank you. I think it's always funny when babies say stuff that they shouldn't know anything about. And this baby knows everything about solving crimes and is very eager to solve crimes. So I didn't try to make her sound like a baby. I tried to make her sound like a grown up. And I think what's so funny about it is that she's so little, and she often refers to things with her babysitter Jenny, like, here, read this, and she'll hand her something to read, but it's just scribbles because she's a baby. And Jenny does speak baby. She has a very special superpower. She understands what babies say, but she can't read baby. And Rosie makes a lot of fun of her for that. She just has no concept that she's just a baby.
There were a couple of those scenes where, like the very first one where it happened, I laughed out loud. Like, had to set it down and laugh for a second because I just wasn't expecting it. Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
I watched a lot of old detective movies so I could get the dialogue just right.
well, the research paid off because I really did think that it was just straight up like detective out of like one of the old school like BBC dramas.
Thank you. That's exactly what I use. Thanks.
So, Mike, let's talk about Mr. Fritz's assignment. When that question is asked, it felt like, a simple thing, like just kind of a whim assignment of like, let's get them thinking. But it ended up pushing Geordie into kind of some big realizations. Why did that question feel like the right entry point into his journey with, animal empathy, the natural world, finding himself?
So, just to preempt, the book I hope is fun. What I'm about to start talk about is sort of like relationships to the natural world and stuff like that sort of sound a little kind of heavy, but like I'm trying to explore some interesting questions while hopefully still making a book that that I think kids will enjoy. But yeah, so Jordy's part of this group of kids who are they're all doing very poorly in this one class, and they get put on a group project together where they just have to answer the question of what is our place in this world. Their science teacher's asking them to sort of create like a presentation. And this would normally sort of be something along the lines of like going green and more sustainable living, all good things like that kids can research. But what I'm trying to play around with in the story is the concept of like different types of worlds that we can exist in. There's the natural world, and then there's the world, our social worlds, and the world of school. But then there's also this world, this video game world of Dominion that's just as important to the characters as like what's happening in the natural world around them. So I just sort of wanted to give space to explore like different ways of like to get the character to feel a little bit less like you're controlling the world. You are more actually a part of it, and you have to sort of accept a certain amount of like, your inability to sort of manage everything happening around you. You have to sort of accept that, we all exist in this world. And sorry, I'm saying the word world a lot, but it was in the question.
It is in the question. There's also multiple different worlds that we talk about when we're talking about your book. And it was a fun read. So even though we're talking about kind of heavier topics, like especially when you get into, I mean, we'll talk about it later, but when you get into the panels where like Dominion is being played, I was I was definitely enthralled. The so we'll get into the fun stuff too though. Although I think that's a fun question. Like what is our place in this world? Like adults need that question asked to them occasionally.
I think so.
So Sina, one thing that I really appreciated about Sasan is that, oh yeah, is that he feels like a real kid. He procrastinates. He bends the truth with both friends and family, um, and doesn't always make the best decisions. Why was it important to you to make him feel like he wasn't like the perfect hero of the story?
Well, part of it was like, I think watching The Wonder Years and seeing as a kid and seeing that sometimes like the main character was the bad guy in an episode. I think it's a better place to start with a story, because I always start everything when I write, like, what does the character learn over the book? And if they already know everything and if they're perfect, then there's nothing for them to learn. And then the other place I start with too is sort of the question of like, what do they fear? And with Sasan, he like really is afraid of, being left out of his friend group or not fitting in. And as a result, he kind of reacts from a place of fear. And obviously, like a lot of these things may or may not have happened to me, and these may or may not be my imperfections that maybe I'd want to see in a book when I was in middle school and know that it's okay. Like you can have these feelings and you can, overcome them or grow from them.
I love that you referenced the Wonder Years. I don't know if I've ever heard an author reference the Wonder Years as inspiration, so I love that. Oh. So Maya, your book captures that very specific in between stage of like growing up where everything feels like it's shifting at once. Why did that age feel like the strongest entry point for like an identity story for you?
Like Sina, I too may be drawing on some of my own personal experiences and memories for this one. And I also wrote it with a co-author, Lucky Shri Kumar, and we both put a lot of ourselves into this character and went back to our own sort of junior high struggles. So me and my co-author are both non-binary, and for both of us, hitting puberty was a real tension point in our lives and a moment where suddenly we started to feel, even more disconnected from our bodies and because of that like more uncomfortable at school and like more withholding from our parents and like tension with our friends and just like all of these sort of boiling points of like junior high when you're changing and everyone around you is changing and it feels like the ground is shifting under your feet. And it just felt like a moment to get into what Sachi like how does Sachi see herself? What is her relation to her own body, to her own emotions? How does she want to be perceived by the world? And how does she want to be in relation with people? And I felt like just that the crucible of junior high was a good place to put my character into a little bit of a pressure cooker.
It definitely brought up a lot of I'm not going to say they were lovely memories, but definitely memories of junior high for
Potent
sure.
memories.
Potent, that's a great one. Yes, very potent memories of junior high. Both good and bad. Reflective, I'll
Yes.
say that. They were
Yes.
very reflective. So Sean, I'm always curious when people are writing these like multiverse stories, like where do they actually begin? So what was the idea or like the visual that led you to the very like specific pairing of like a robot and a secret agent penguin?
Um, it's a good question because it evolved over a very long time. I came up with these characters about 26 years ago. And they've changed a lot. Like originally Xanar was just a person. Mr. Tuxedo's always been a penguin with an eye patch, but and then Xanar evolved into a robot as his character kind of became more positive and optimistic. And I was like, well, that only makes sense if a robot's like that. And so that changed. And then for the longest time, they always existed within the same world. It wasn't a multiverse story. But every time I would go back to them, because I just loved these characters so much, I'd go back and go, well, how do I make this work? One of them's a robot, one of them's a penguin. How do they exist in the same world? And what does that mean? And blah, blah, blah. And then eventually I hit upon like, well, what if they're not from the same world? And then that's when it really became the story it is. It's like, oh, well, that's great because then they can be from these different places and then they can go to different places. And that's when it really opened up of I like just the two of these together of this optimistic, childlike robot kid, and then this kind of surly older penguin. Just the pairing of them. It's the one's tall, one's short, one's smiling, one's grumpy. It's kind of perfect. And then, yeah, figuring out that they can be from different worlds is what really made the story really explode for me.
They really were the perfect pair. Loved loved watching them evolve as characters. I also think that's a really like interesting like arc for authors or young authors especially to hear is that this has been in process for a while and evolving, and you're always allowed to shelf something and come back to it, especially if you care a lot about it. So thanks for that. Let's clip that so that we can roll it back for all of our teens. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to Sina. So in your author's note, you mentioned that Game On was originally maybe a zine that you had made in your 20s. So how did writing for tweens change kind of the way that you thought about your own childhood experiences from that zine?
Yeah, well, I think when you're writing something like as an adult for anybody, or even just like about, because the zine was called Persian Version before the movie. And I think that was coming from more of like an observational standpoint. And when I was making this book, it felt more important to like kind of have the camera right here and like looking straight on at these things. And so there were fewer like aha moments with these observations and kind of cultural memories. And I also just felt like it was more important to like be on the cast team, like so when you're on the ground, this stuff could be happening that I wanted to talk about, but because you're seeing it through Sasan's eyes, and he's more invested in his friend over here, and like the grown-ups could be doing something over there, and he just doesn't even care. So that was kind of the biggest thing is like you're on his side and you're seeing his thing, and you care about what he cares about, and so there's a little bit more of a distance between like him and the grown-ups and sort of what they are doing.
Yeah, I like that. I also love the way that you helped us visualize the directions that you were viewing things from. It feels
Yeah.
very cinematic to me to think of it in that way. So, Meg, let's go back. Let's go back to the baby. So, although this time maybe not the babies. So Highland Estates has a lot of twins, like a lot of twins. I feel like
Does.
there are four pairs of twins, which was fun. It was really interesting. What made you decide to put so many twins in the story?
Yeah, Highland Estates is based on Highland Ranch, which is where my aunt lives, and she's got twins. And basically, everyone in the neighborhood has twins. I assume there was some in vitro going on. I don't know. But like, I literally based it on that town. And I didn't even realize until my editor pointed out, she's like, why are there so many twins in that town? I went, oh no, everybody's a twin. But they really are kind of based on my cousins and all different characters who actually are real people who are twins. So, yeah, that wasn't on purpose. Eventually, they had to comment on it because they're like, there's so many twins in this story. I think that life is like that a lot now. There's a lot of twins around, way
There
more than when I
are.
was a kid. Yeah.
I was wondering if we were getting set up for maybe another mystery that Rosie's going to solve. Is
Oh, well,
why
yeah,
there's so many
100%, but
twins?
not the incredible in vitro going on in Highland Estates, but maybe someday.
Uh, Heard it here. So my feelings about her body are very raw, and they're portrayed very specifically, but it never feels overwhelming for the reader. So how did you balance that like emotional honesty while keeping it feeling very middle grade?
Yeah, that was a challenge because I definitely wanted to get into some feelings about puberty, first periods. There is a brief sex ed scene in the school in this book. And I wanted to make sure it was like thoughtfully done because since this book is for middle grade, it is possible that this will be the first time a reader would encounter these subjects in this book if they haven't talked about it with their parents or had their own sex ed class at school or something. So I was like, let's keep it, make sure everything is very accurate, very, like good information, but also presented kind of gently to welcome a reader into these subjects. But also, like, I had a lot of intense feelings about my body, especially when I was like 11 and 12 and like just hitting puberty and really feeling a lot of dysphoria and discomfort with how my body was changing and feeling like it was changing in a direction that didn't feel like it aligned with my sense of self. And that's a really hard thing to go through as a young person. And yeah, I just wanted to write about that quite honestly. And a lot of Sachi's like snarkiest comments including the title, which comes from when Sachi says, "I would like to opt out of both genders, please," is just exactly what I was feeling at that age.
Oh, that was so well said. Like, thank you.
I too have been working on this book for many years and have been thinking about it a lot. About six for me, so not as long as the robot and tuxedo characters, but over half a decade.
I, I mean, it shows like the way that it was so skillfully done. Like I was just shocked by like how I was reading it, and it never felt overwhelming.
Glad.
Which I feel like, someone that has had gender journeys as well. Sometimes I read things and it feels very heavy on me. So it
Mm,
felt, I don't know. I was just very, very thankful that it
good.
expressed it in a way that felt, I
Yeah, we
don't
wanted
have
it to be
my words. Yeah,
approachable and welcoming.
yeah, good job. So we're going to go back to Mike. Um, so I really liked the juxtaposition of your two worlds. Like I loved how the real world was kind of drawn a little bit more grayscale with color, a little more saturated, and then you go into um, Dominion and it's bright colors and energetic and exciting. So what went into making those pages feel like pure creative freedom for Geordie?
So, so one thing with what Maya was just saying as well, what I like about writing middle grade is I really do think that you can talk about any sort of topic. You just have to think about who your audience is and how they may be receiving it and like what they're bringing to the page. So I really enjoy that as a middle grade writer. Like I think it's like you can write about any type of thing. But the book that this particular book, as you're saying, like it has a real world environment that's, as you said, a bit more drab, watercolored. I spent a lot of time trying to render the environments, but it's not quite as bright as when you go to the video game world, which is bright and bold. And that's where I got a little bit nervous because kids know video games. I worry a little bit about like if I'm rendering the video games in a way that's going to feel inauthentic. Like I happen to play a lot of Fortnite. So I sort of understand like how that game looks and feels. But like I have he's not a tween anymore, he's a teenager now, but I have a son, plays a lot of like Roblox, Minecraft, those types of games. And I had thought about trying to replicate that sort of, how those games are like pixel, very blocky, pixelated. There's a lot of text everywhere. Um, I didn't know if I could do that in a way that was authentic, so I felt like it'd be better for me to just create the most fun, vibrant, bold world that I could, that I was able to with my skills, and because I'm not a video game artist. I'm limited by what I'm able to put down on the page. But I really just wanted to make it feel like a place where the characters would want to spend their time, like a comfortable, like bright, colorful, fun alternative to the world that the main character's living in. But yeah, so that was a little nervous about, yeah, because video games is like I play a little bit, but not as much as like the younger readers. They certainly play a lot more.
Well, I'm definitely not as us into video games as the younger reader, but I do play quite a few video games, more than I should probably admit. And I thought it was a fun video game world. So, uh, Sean, so Roy's arc really explores how someone can start from like this idea that I want to protect others and then slowly drifts into, fear, control, violence. Why was that like tension in the character interesting to you to write about?
Yeah. So Roy's the villain of the the book. I mean, it started out as creating the villain is the opposite of the hero. So, our two heroes are about teamwork and companionship and having each other's backs and being like, you can handle this, you can handle this. So having a villain whose idea is I'm the only one who can solve people's problems. It's up to me. I have to do it. And well, thinking about it, it's like, well, that what genre of stories are those? It's like, chosen one stories where it's like someone is destined to be the hero. So it's like, it's on me. I have to do this. So that's where that came from. And then the other meta aspect of it is he's a character whose franchise just isn't allowed to end, so his bad guy just keeps coming back over and over again. So it's like they defeat him the first time, and then a couple years later, here he is again, here he is again. And so it's that sort of punishing continuation of his story that is also the part that kind of drives him a bit crazy of like this guy keeps going back. I'm the only one who can do it. And so it's that idea that kind of drives him to be who he is of like only I can do this and this is never ending.
Also, just want to throw one more. Was this inspired by anyone in particular, or
I would say it
was it
was, yeah, it's inspired by the Harry Potter world where he's kind of
okay?
this sorcerer character who yeah, is a chosen one person who's only, yeah, I can only defeat this, and then it's just his bad guy just keeps coming back over and over and over again. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, I would love to do a quick lightning round with everyone. Um, give your brains a little time to free themselves. Although I guess I'm going to ask you to do something maybe even more labor intensive. But so, Sean, I'm going to go right back to you. This question is what is one graphic novel or comic by another creator that you think every single person should read?
Ooh, that's it's tough to say everyone should read it, but at least off the top for me, the comic book All-Star Superman that came out,
Mm,
I guess 20 years ago at this point. Um,
yeah.
yeah. I just think it's a great 12 issues of Superman. It's very uplifting, very sort of a life-affirming, just joyous celebration of Superman and superheroes. And my favorite artist of all time, Frank Quietly, is the artist on it, and I think it's the best work he's ever done. So in terms if I had to just give someone one comic ever, I'd probably go, okay, All-Star Superman's a good one to go with.
Absolutely. Actually had to turn around. I have some like comics displayed on this wall behind me, and I was like, "Is that one of them that I have up there?" I know I have a copy somewhere. Maya, what about you?
I had to narrow this question down a little bit because I read a lot. I read like 100 books a year. And so I was like, okay, instead of saying the one, I was like, if you enjoyed opting out, I would suggest that any reader also read Fresh Start by Gail Galligan, which came out last year, which is another middle grade story about an older sibling who's a little bit more gender questioning with a more flamboyant younger sibling. And there's like sibling bonding as one of the plot lines in both of these books. And also like wanting to stay in your fantasy childhood like friend group world is also part of these two books. So when I read Gail Galligan's book, I was like, ah, these two need to be on the shelf together. And I hope any reader who reads one will also read the other because I think you'd enjoy both of them if that's sort of your flavor.
Awesome. That one's been on my to read pile, so you just
Should
moved
pick it
it
up.
right to the
It's really
top.
good.
Sina, what about you?
I also narrowed it down in a different direction of just sort of recent books
Mm,
I've just read that sort of stood out. And I picked Fruitcake by Rex Ogle and Dave Valleza.
oh
It's
yeah.
a kind of the fictionalized version of Rex's adolescence and the lessons he learns along the way. And this one specifically is sort of like him having, feelings for a best friend while also sort of kind of like entering unwittingly into a relationship with another friend.
Mm,
But really, like the secret weapon in all of this line of books is Dave Valeza's artwork is like he's just
mm.
so good and so just like nails emotion and cartooning down. And I don't want everyone to discover him because I would like to work with him at some point, but also like give that man his flowers. It's great.
I used to share an office with Rex Ogle back when we worked at DC together.
Oh, nice.
Nice little
And I
And
was
you
kid.
just
tell him
gonna
I said
say,
this.
I was gonna say, like the two books we that Cena and I both recommended, and also I think the two books that we wrote is that like I want to write about experiences from my middle grade, but I want to be able to have a more satisfying conclusion that actually happened in my middle grade years, and so I'm gonna make it
Yeah.
fiction instead of memoir. And I feel like Rex is in that same kind of like pulling from real emotion, but like fictionalizing so it has like a slightly tidier ending.
I would love to rewrite my middle grade years to have a nice tidy ending as well.
Maybe reach some
Okay,
satisfying life lesson conclusions like by the time
exactly.
you're 12 instead of in your mid 20s.
That would be great. So if anyone
Think
wants
that
to
up.
collab, let me know. I would love to rewrite those years. Mike, what about you?
A graphic novel, a middle grade graphic novel that I found very inspiring was Shark Summer by Ira Marks. It came out a couple years back, and I really liked that it was again. It's middle grade. It's very much like for kids. It's written with their interest in mind, but it's also like not afraid to like put some complex ideas in
Mm.
there. This particular story is about these kids having this adventure in the town where Steven Spielberg is filming Jaws. So it's like set in
Oh.
this very specific place. The mechanical shark comes into it. Like it's all like it's quite high concept and like in a very fun way. And like it's very like the plot is quite complicated. Like because I really don't think you need to like make things simple just because they're for kids. I think you can like give them something that they can like something meaty that they can really like get into. So that was a very inspiring graphic novel. I really
Mm.
love his work. Um,
Mm.
Adding
That's
that
on
one
my
to the
to read
list as
list now.
well. Yeah.
he's great.
Glad I asked this. I'm getting all the good recommendations. And Meg.
Well, I'm getting good recommendations too. The one book that I thought of, to introduce to the world is one I read recently. It's called, well, I just want to amend this to say that I love royalty. I wrote The Princess
Mm.
Diaries, so I love anything to do with royalty. And when I was in middle school, I was the same way. And so a book that I saw that got my attention was called The Prince and the Dressmaker by Jen Wang. I think
Yes.
that's the title. Has the most beautiful art. So it hit all of my pleasure centers. It had fashion, it had royalty. I thought it was going to have a romance, and I'm not going to give anything away, but that is actually not part of the story. It's
Mm.
really more about a friendship over fashion. And
Mm.
I loved it so much. And so I recommend it to everybody to read because it's also kind of about deeper things like your sexuality and how you dress. What does it say about you? And why does that matter so much to some people? So, but really what sucked me in was the gorgeous gowns. And I
The
loved
art
it.
in
So,
that.
oh
I
my
love
God,
that
it's
book.
amazing.
I love that
Yeah,
book.
it's great.
Yeah, if that one's not on your list, it definitely should be. Move it right to the top. Actually, right behind these five that we're talking about today. Okay, well, let's get back into talking about your lovely graphic novels. So, Maya, I'm going to go back to you. I really appreciated Sachi and Lila's like tension that kind of happens in the story. One of it's not really about one of them being wrong versus right. It's just them kind of growing in different directions. Was it important to you to show that kind of drifting apart as a normal part of childhood and adolescence?
Yeah, definitely. I think in a line with what I was saying, all of the changes of middle school and especially the way that I felt out of step with my peers, it meant I lost some friends at that age. And it there was not a specific reason. It wasn't like we had a big fight or like a falling out or like anything like that. It was just we simply were becoming different people as we grew into young adults. And there aren't that many books that I've read that I feel like have a sort of friendship breakup or friendship ending story that felt like it matched sort of like what I had lived through. So I did want to have a sort of friendship dissolving as one of the parts of this story. And there's sort of two big, I would say, emotional arcs in opting out. And one is the two siblings getting closer, and the other is the two friends getting farther apart. And so we have sort of these contrast of like a closer relationship and a drifting apart relationship. And it's really just because Sachi and Lila, who are best friends at the beginning of the story and have known each other since like third grade, they're just becoming different people. They have different interests and their interests are no longer kind of aligning with each other and they just kind of can't see eye to eye. Um, and that's okay. Like it's okay that they're becoming their own different people. And they'll both find other people to connect with as they move into high school.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there are very few books that talk about just this disillusion of friendship rather than this like breaking up of
It's
friendships.
hard. It's really hard to feel like you're drifting away from your former bestie or that they're just like into stuff you're not into anymore or they start dating and you're suddenly not part of that. Like it's really hard.
Yeah,
But kids go through it, so we should write about it.
And adults.
absolutely.
And adults also go through it. Yes.
Yeah,
Anyone at any age.
universal experience for all ages. Mike, I want to go back to Dominion. As I said, I am a big video game person, so I get kind of hung up on when people write video games. So, in Dominion, Geordie had total creative freedom inside the game in a way that he really just doesn't in his everyday life. Why do you think those kinds of open-ended digital worlds resonate so much with our middle schoolers?
I mean, I think that the base level, it's fun. Like, it's fun to play these games. I mean, like, so I've got kids who've gone through middle school. You see it like in all their friends, like they just enjoy it, and it has its own social elements. You're playing with people. I mean, especially particularly during COVID, um, you know, it was a way that kids were interacting with each other. Like, when people were all just staying home. But also obviously, just technological advances, creating iPads and games that, kids can easily access, that sort of the parents may not particularly understand, um, but will be asked frequently for money, just to buy things in these games. Um, so I think as obviously fun is a big part of it, but then I also in this story, I'm not a psychologist, I'm just a writer, but I was thinking about anxiety, thinking about the world feeling chaotic and out of your control. And I do feel like younger readers today probably feel that more for a variety of reasons. So I was using a video game world as a way to sort of, the kids may feel more ability to build a world that they're comfortable in this world, in this video game world. But I also kind of wanted to undermine that a little bit in that, even there, there's chaos and there's just, you have to accept. You can't just like, the world is just uncontrollable. But mostly, I mean, yeah, I mean, like kids just love video games. Like it's a,
It is
hopefully
very
they still
true.
enjoy reading.
I have a feeling they will. I definitely think that anything with video games is going to draw that middle school readers. So, well, while we're talking about different worlds, I'm going to go to you, Sean, because you had a lot of different worlds pop up in your book, and you also had an artist, Julia Giacomo, Comino, sorry. And I just kind of want to know what it was like working with an artist when you're not creating just one world, but you were creating a lot of little worlds. What did that collaboration look like?
There wasn't like a lot of deep collaboration. She's just amazing. So, I found her because she was working on a Lilo and Stitch comic for Disney, and I forget what publisher was doing it, but it's Disney Lilo and Stitch. And I feel like when you do those kinds of books, you have to just be good at drawing in a lot of different styles and everything because it's pretty mandated, like what you have to do. So I knew she'd be great at kind of jumping from thing to thing. And then, just within the script, it would be this is this kind of world. It's, based kind of off like Mr. Tuxedo's. It's like, well, it's like a little kid show, like a preschooler show, like an Octonauts kind of thing. And then, you send some reference, or they go to a Jane Austen like world in this. So, again, send the trailer to Sense and Sensibility or other images. And then, like I said, she's just great. And then she picked up on it and then ran with it. And, the colorist too was very excited about the idea of jumping from place to place. So he did some subtle things like in the Jane Austen world, the colors are a little more paintery as opposed to where Mr. Tuxedo's from, where it's a kid show, it's a little more bright and shiny in that. So it was just stuff they were excited to do, so they really jumped on it and put their own spins on things. So it was exciting.
It was exciting to jump from world to world as a reader as well. Well, while we're talking about lovely artists that collaborated, I'd love to talk about the garbage dump scene in your book, Meg. It was chaotic, to say the least. There were babies sliding down trash piles, like junk everywhere. When you were scripting that, how much of the visual comedy was already planned out versus what Amelia added on her own?
Thank you for pointing that because that's my favorite scene too. And just as a writer, when you're not doing the illustrations yourself and you get the illustrations back, it is always such an incredibly great surprise. And that when I got that, I was like, what? It was amazing. I love Amelia. Literally, all I said to Amelia is, "This is a scene where the kids are at the dump. They're trying to solve a crime. The babies don't let the babies go near the garbage because Jenny, the babysitter, would never let them go near the garbage. And thank God she did not listen to me because she created the funniest tableau of these babies using garbage for their entertainment, like sliding down the garbage. And I was so glad she did because she as the artist, was able to maybe visualize what I was actually trying to say, which is make this crazy garbage scene even crazier than I had suggested. And I'm so glad she did.
It was like a lovely like setting for just like you were just tracking things. Like I was just like
I
looking
love that.
all over. It was,
Yeah.
I don't know. It
And
was very
I
like
think,
fun, chaotic picture book-esque where you're just
yes.
like constantly
Yeah.
trying to find all the funny little
Yeah.
scenes.
Yeah. I love pictures like that too, because there's just so much. There's something going on in every single tiny centimeter of it. And that's why I love Amelia. She does that for everything, but that scene in particular, because she specifically did not do what I say, I'm so glad that she did. And so now we let her do whatever she wants because she's amazing.
Love that. Okay, and let's go back to Sina. So one thing that I would love to talk about is the great Persian culture that is all throughout your novel. What was your favorite cultural element to write and then see illustrated on the page?
Uh, I think I think it was like family dynamics, because so much of what has already been out there has been like either what's in the news or the Valley Persian style, which is just like extreme like wealth and opulence. And so I just thought getting into kind of like little things, like even like how I've noticed like a lot, there's been a lot of like mnemonic devices and naming kids in Persian culture. And so just like stuff like that that could really sort of humanize in a very like normcore way. Like no agenda. These are just everyone's freaking quirky. And I just like kind of loved bringing that out. I don't have a, even though I had time to think about this question, I still don't have a better answer than I was like, I just want to make everyone quirky.
I think that's a great answer. I will say that one of my favorite scenes is when Sasan's trying to explain what the roots is, and his sister's just like, wrong. No, that's not it. And I just loved that. I loved the sibling dynamic that was happening, like behind the scenes, even as well. And I just thought it was a fun, interesting way to also glitter in like Persian culture, like and being the older sister. I don't know. I just love that scene so
That
much.
that did not happen in real life when I was in middle school.
Absolutely not. You knew everything. You got it all right.
I knew
Always.
everything. I knew what the half scene was, I swear.
Love it. So I want to go to one more lightning round, and this one is a little bit more about maybe this book versus your next book. But I want to hear about a project that you're working on, but I'm going to make it difficult, and I'm only going to give you 3 words to describe your next project. So let's start with Maia.
Gender queer sequel.
Oh, lovely. I feel like that was so easy for you. Oh, okay. So let's go to Meg.
Oh. Cheerleader stolen necklace
Okay.
is the next case for the baby. See, I can't do 3 words. I'm a writer. I
No,
got to expound.
no, the 3 words were great. I read it, so I knew what you were talking about. So, okay, let's go to Mike.
I'm gonna count literary magazine as 1 word.
Already
Zine.
cheating.
Yeah.
Literary magazine, zines, rivalry. Sounds interesting,
Intriguing.
doesn't it?
I'm hooked. I am sat. Okay, Sean.
Well, nothing right now. So those are my
Nothing
my
right
3 words.
now.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Nice break.
Well,
And Sina.
uh, eighth grade sucks.
Oh,
Okay.
sucks.
I mean, it does. So also ready for that one.
a early working title for opting out was Junior High is Miserable, which I was like, that's not gonna last, but that is the first draft when I wrote the very early script.
It's
Oh,
a
but it
fair.
is. It is absolutely miserable. Okay, so I think we are getting close to time. So what I'm going to do is I am going to give us one more lightning round question. And this one's I'm super excited to ask it. If you could adopt any fictional pet or animal companion from a comic or a graphic novel, who are you taking home? Just want to let it sit in for just a second because there's so many to choose from. And I'm going to move first to you, Sina.
This one was very easy for me. I would want Crypto because I want a dog that is stronger than me and will live longer than me.
Mm.
Good answer. Sean, what about you?
I'm not a huge animal person, so I was thinking if I could have something kind of small and nice, I would pick Snowy from Tintin. He just seems like a nice, cute dog to have it around the house.
I'd be afraid I would lose Snowy. I don't know. There's something
Well,
I would be terrified. So small. Mike, what about you?
I'm gonna say Garfield, um, because I love Mondays and I don't really like lasagna, and I just like that we'd have things to argue about and debate.
He would
Balance
eat
each
you out
other
of
out.
house and home.
Would be the John Arbuckle.
Oh, what about you, Meg?
But you guys stole all of mine. So I'm glad that I have such good taste that I chose Snowy and Crypto. But so now I have to think of a new one. And one just popped into my head. When I was in kindergarten, I told all the kids in the kindergarten class that the 101 Dalmatians lived at my house. So I'm going to say 101 Dalmatians. It was kind of sketchy when they came over for a birthday party and the dogs weren't there. And I said they were sleeping. So
A lot of dog lovers in the chat
Yeah, I would
today.
like that too. I want 101 dogs.
Absolutely.
That
yeah,
yes, that
right?
couldn't be
Yeah.
better.
Oh,
That's a
you
lot
all
of
can
dog
have
poop.
them. Yeah, you can have them. If you ever need someone to watch one of them, you know who to call. One at a time, please. Maya, round us out.
I went in a slightly different direction and I picked a creature that you might consider a little bit scarier than some of the other options. I picked the creature from The Deep Dark by Lee Knox Ostertag, which is technically slightly a horror book, but it's a wonderful, like, I would say young adult graphic novel, and I don't want to spoil what sort of the creature is, but it's spooky and magical and very queer and a little dragonish, and I would take one of those.
Absolutely. I agree with that. I was a little sad no one said any of the tea dragons because if you
That would be a
they're
cuddlerier version of
um,
the option that I picked.
I don't know. They don't all need to cuddle. Not all pets need to cuddle. Well, first of all, thank you all so much for being here with us today and talking about all the hard work that you did putting these novels out into the world and for also creating for our young readers to have worlds to escape into whenever they need that. And thank you again for sharing your perspectives, both on your titles and my silly questions. And thank you to our audience for joining us today. We're so happy that you are here. And we I can't wait for you to leave and grab all five of these amazing titles. So, up next, you have a choice of three different sessions. You can join Stories and People That Shape Our Lives, Another Time, Another Place, or a historic collaboration. So, thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care.